Hi, Mrik. I guess we can start with the session.
Yes, Harshita. All right.
Great. So, hi
Also, this is going
everyone.
to be recorded, right?
Yeah, I am recording the session. Oh,
Okay, okay.
yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in the session. And hi, Mrik. Today's session is about pricing and charging your worth. So, thank you for coming here. Firstly, let's have a brief introduction about you. And before that, I would like to ask how's your weekend going and how are you?
Thank you so much, Harshita. I'm doing good. First of all, my weekend is good as well. It's pretty busy as usual. I take off the weekends to plan for what I'm going to do in the week. So the weekend is a little busy. And other than that, thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure as always. You told me that the first session went really well, and there was a lot of positive feedbacks. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation, and I hope that we'll be able to provide value and help a lot of other people who have joined and also who will be listening after this recording has been posted. So that's one. To tell you a little about myself, I am a SaaS marketer. But for the context of the conversation we are going to have today, I was an ex content manager at the Russian embassy in Delhi. And then COVID hit, and we were all given the chance to work from home. And that's the point I realized that, maybe freelancing is something that I could try. I had tried freelancing just after college for a brief period of time, but I mean, I felt that getting a proper job would be better for me and for my skills. I really did not understand selling or how to get clients and all of those things. So I worked for a Californian company for a brief period of time, took up a couple of jobs after that, and then became a content manager at the Russian embassy. And when COVID hit, I came to freelancing full time. I gave myself a couple of months and decided that if we'll figure out this process of selling and how to get clients and things like that, maybe I'll continue with it. So I started freelancing on the side, and it went pretty well. Even when I was like at my job, I was earning close to about a lakh. And with freelancing, it somehow happened that I crossed that mark. And that's when I decided that, let's jump into freelancing full time. And it's going pretty well. It's been about 8 months. And I have successfully moved from being a freelancer to pretty much being a consultant also. And tomorrow I'm registering. Luckily, it's pretty much a coincidence. Tomorrow I'm registering my first virtual office in San Francisco, California. So that's huge. Freelancing has been treating me well. I think I did not know a lot of things when I started, and a lot of things which are not talked about, like how do you get clients, how do you talk to them, and how do you sell your services and sell the value of your services and all of those things. That we might cover in this conversation. So super stoked to talk about all of those things and some of the lessons that I think I've learned over a period of time. I don't think I have figured it out all yet. A lot of it still comes from networking and people who know me and my services from the past. But there are some things, that I've consciously learned and, practiced over a period of time that I think will help a lot of people who are here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mrik, and many congratulations for setting up the virtual office. Many best wishes from my side and obviously from the audience side as well. Many people commented, yeah. So, best wishes for the same. Let's start with today's session. And today's session is about the pricing strategies and onboarding, getting the better with uh, client onboarding process. So, my first question to you would be when the client approaches us or we approach a client, the first thing that connects both of us is the discovery call. Maybe like understanding both of our needs and skills. So, what's this discovery call is all about and how to ace at it?
Sure, Harshita. So, before I come to the discovery call bit and, how do you talk to the client in the process of discovery, I would give a little context to, what we're going to talk about and, how the whole process works and how it's very different from, what everybody in the industry talks about. So, like, do we have time? Can I can I talk for about the next 5 or 10 minutes and give a little more context about, what is value-based pricing and, how the process that really helps you uh, show your clients the value of the services you provide is different from what everybody else is talking about.
Yeah, we can definitely go ahead. So once we set up the context, it would be easier for the audience to understand every question as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll quickly touch on that topic. So the way we've been taught to price ourselves is like, think about the first time you had to quote a price to a client. You probably knew that if you quote too much you might not get the gig, and if you quoted too little you might make less than what you could have made. So you probably researched what the market prices for the services were, or you did some calculations to see what hourly rates maybe justified the salary you were making if you were like me in a job before. So we all go about doing this. After all, we have to be able to justify the prices we quote. But don't you think the prospect can always exchange your services for someone who can do the same work at a much cheaper price, which is like always the case? And I think this is what happens with most freelancers out there. You have to really be able to justify the value you're providing. When you quote your prices according to the market rates, you're compelling. I mean, you're competing against zillions of other freelancers who probably offer the same services at a much cheaper price than you. When you go, I charge maybe $150 per hour for my services, the client is probably thinking about how someone for the same services charges $20 per hour on Upwork or Fiverr. So what's the way out? That's what we need to be thinking about. What are the successful freelancers doing that you've missed all the while? So one is, you don't have to be worried about market rates. Market rates are for losers. Never commoditize your services, and I'll go into how you actually go about doing it. Or let you don't have to let your price compete against that of others. And how you do that is you do that by understanding positioning and being a better businessman rather than just being a better freelancer. So I want you to, just step in the shoes of your clients and think for a second as to why they would hire you. Sure, it might be, design, marketing, coding, whatever services you're providing, but for some time, think about the larger problem you're solving. What would they achieve from your, whatever services you're selling, design, marketing, coding, etc. It's critical that you understand why your clients want to hire you to be able to rework what you charge. Generally speaking, your clients would hire you only if you help them make more money or reduce costs in their own businesses in some way or the other. Okay, so your clients have reasoned that your services and skills will help them make more money or reduce costs. If you write a web page for your client's website, then you convert their traffic into paying customers, and they want to hire you to write their copy. So it's not your copywriting skills that's getting you hired, it's what the client thinks your copywriting skills can help them achieve, which is more paying customers. Right? The problem is often that you're so solely focused on what you are doing that you forget about the why of what you do. Okay, so if you just sell design, marketing, or coding services, then you cannot help but be seen as selling a commodity. You would you would sell these services without context and would end up, being seen as an expense. And what did I just tell you? Your clients will hire you only if you can help them make more money or reduce costs in some way or the other. So if you are seen as an expense that the business is making, then see what I'm telling you. The business wants to reduce costs, so they won't hire you, and they'll probably hire somebody who can do the same job at a cheaper price, right? So when you start getting invested in your client's business and understand why they are hiring you, you can then target the pain points that your clients actually want to be solved when they hire you. So you really have to go inside the client's business to figure out the larger why and see why your clients are actually hiring you, the bigger reason, and which goes beyond what services you're providing. So like I gave you the example of writing a web page for your client. Your client is not hiring you for your copywriting skills. They are hiring you because you can get them more leads or more conversions, right? And generally speaking, I'm into marketing. I'm not sure how many. I'm assuming that people who will listen to this or who are here are not just into marketing but maybe design and other skills as well. So for marketing, there are usually three reasons why anybody would hire you. One is leads, one is conversions, and one is authority. So if you can give your, these are the three larger whys why any client would approach you. So you really have to understand which one of the three it is, and then be able to talk to them in those terms. So it's business to business. See, this approach is very different from how we go out. What usually happens when you get on a discovery call, which was Harshita's questions, and I'll talk more about it. when you get on a discovery call, usually what happens with most freelancers is they ask, okay, what is the project about, and then they start going into the details. So if it's writing a web page, they'll start going into the details of how many pages needs to be written, what is the services, and what is how many words, how many pages. Do you have your do you know something about your audience, or do I have to research all? They start going into the details, and at the end of the call, when it's done, they'll go into some cave and start making proposals, and then hope and pray that the price that they have thrown is the one that the client expected, which is not how it should be. Okay, what I'm talking about is when you go into the discovery call, you start with, okay, what is the project about, and why you sort out my prices. But before we go there, I'll just give me a second. Yes. So you, like I was saying, you shouldn't be taken away by the technicalities of the project, which is what most freelancers do. It does not serve you or your client in any manner. Not you, because you don't know. Like I said, you can't be going away in a cave and just be concerned about your services, and then give a random number to a client and then hope and pray that the number or the price you suggested is the one that the client wanted, or that way you get seen as an expense. So one, it does not serve you, and the other is it does not serve the client in any manner, because they cannot see the link between how what you're doing can help them make more money or reduce costs in their own business. So what you need to do is look for the trigger when you get on a discovery call. Your next question should be on the lines of, okay, so what made you reach out to someone like me, or what happened that made you reach out to someone like me? So you're trying to figure out what is the larger why. Okay. And most of us are solopreneurs, who never had the responsibility to look into data or the ROI any project is given, which is making this which might make this series of questions a little uncomfortable, which is okay. But over a period of time, you want to get comfortable being invested in your client's business and how what you're doing contributes to it. Because like I've reiterated a couple of times now, this is the only thing that will serve you and your clients, and will help you, charge the higher bucks. The previous question as to what made you reach out to me will again trigger a series of responses that will tell you what the client is looking for. Now, this may or may not tell you the backing problem that the client has. So you have to highlight the problem for them and then dig a little deeper. So say something on the lines of, okay, so you want this ABC thing fixed. Could you tell me about how this thing will, or what this thing will actually solve? Now, most businesses might not be open to sharing insider information like this on a call, or anything like that. So what I do is, I usually sign an NDA with them before I get on a call, then I move forward with this conversation. But okay, so you want this thing fixed, tell me what will this thing solve, what is the larger problem that you're looking to fix, and what made you reach out to me. So what is the larger problem? And once the client has told you the larger problem, go into the lines of, okay, that makes total sense. Now, before we discuss further, I want to let you know that the way I work with companies is a little different from the way others work, which is I work on a project only if I'm confident I can deliver a return on investment. So do you mind telling me what the impact this project will have on your business? So what you're asking them to do is asking them to verbalize why this project is important, why it's important right now, what impact is it going to have on your business, and why you want it fixed, or how my services is going to fix that problem that you have. You want them to verbalize all of these things, because often, again, also what happens is the client will reach out to you, and they will say that we want all these problems fixed, but it might not be urgent at that point. So you want the client to verbalize in front of you and admit that, okay, this is a problem that we have, this is what is at stake, and this is what we want to be solved. And it's also important, like I said, that you tell the client that you want to work with their business only if you think that your services will give them a positive return on investment. And you should make that very clear that I'm investigating these questions only to be able to better serve what is your larger cause for reaching out to me for is. Okay. So it's not copywriting. Like I said, it's solving a problem of leads. solving a problem of conversion, solving a problem of authority, or whatever it is. You want to, ask the client to, just tell everything to you. And how you want to close the discovery call is, you want to say something on the lines of, okay, I have understood what the problem is. I see what impact is it's going to make in the business. Reiterate, whatever the client told you about, why this is important, why it needs to be solved right now, what is at stake, how your services, how they think your services is going to help them solve the larger problem that they have in their business. And then you want to close, you want to reiterate all these points. You want to close the discovery call by reiterating all these points, and then telling the client that, okay, as long as my services, the impact my services make on your business, the effect of my the impact or the effect of my services on your business is larger than the cost, it makes total sense to move forward. So you are asking them, essentially, you're telling them essentially that this might be higher, but because I work with only the price, my prices might be higher, but I work only with clients where I'm sure I can deliver a return on investment. And to the extent it will be possible, I can promise you that the results that I'm going to deliver, so and so. And the conversation I'm making here, this has to be implicit, that it's talking business to business. Okay, it's not about a freelancer who has some services which is totally different from, which is totally detached to what your problem is. There is a link between the two things, and you're talking business to business as to, how giving me 1 penny is going to make you $3 in return, giving me $1 is going to give you $3 in returns, which is how a business works. So this is, the lines of, the lines on which you need to be thinking about the discovery call, and the kind and the way, you need to direct it to. So did that make sense, Harshita? Did you follow where I'm going, and how I went about the process?
Absolutely. I got the process very clear on how to actually get on with a discovery call, and how to set the context right before getting on a discovery call, and how to make the conversation smooth with the client.
100%. I love the word that you said, setting the context right. Absolutely. That's exactly what I meant, that your services are not, very detached to the problem that the client wants to be solved. There is a particular context, and, you have, again, the more you ask the client, and the more you see the link between your services and the clients, the better it is for you, because then you can again regurgitate or reiterate, everything that the client just admitted, and you think will be will help them solve the problem that they want to be solved in the proposal, and then making a quote. And even in the proposal, before you charge your own services, maybe there are some numbers that the clients told you that you can, post, like, put it in the proposal. So your price is not the only thing that the client sees in the proposal. There are a lot of numbers they've seen, and a lot of things that they know. The return on investment, if they see that that's much more than, what you're pricing, then it's an immediately, okay, let's go ahead. Right?
Definitely. The next question for you, for you, is on the pricing proposal only, because like after we get on the discovery call, the next question the clients ask is what the price you are going to quote for these services, or for this. So when we start with the pricing proposal, as you said, more than the price, they see the return, maybe the investment, like what numbers I am getting back, how many leads I would get, how many like brand settlement, whatever the service you are providing. So that numbers matters more than the price maybe. And if they see that only the price is highlighting and not the services, they tend to think that the price is even more. So how to actually set that context even right, when once we have talked them in the discovery call, and then actually give them the written proposal, how to go on with the same.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Harshita. What you're asking me is, how to go about writing the proposal where, you can create that balance between what the client wants and what your services are, and then go about pitching for your prices, right?
Right, definitely. Like what the
Yes.
services has to be, and what we are charging for the same.
Yes. So one thing, before, okay, so we'll talk about road mapping later. So in the proposal, usually I prefer to have, 3 to 4 different sections. The first is usually, of course, in the first page, you want to write from whom and for who the proposal is. In the next page, you want to write a letter that's addressed directly to the client. So, hey, whatever is the name of the prospect, the client, and then a paragraph on whatever you discussed in the discovery call. See, there you want to be talking about, first is highlight what is the problem and why it's important to solve it right now. So, hey, Arjita, maybe if that's the name of the prospect, I from the conversation we had today, I realized that you are earnest about solving whatever ABC problem that you have. Uh, um, then talk about so this is I mean, for us it might, for people who are not very used to sales, this might feel like, okay, haven't we discussed all these things? Does the client already knows that the problem that they have, or the solution they are looking for? Why do we need to repeat all these things? But it works like a charm, really. You have to be able to tell the client again and again. So when they read the next few pages about your prices and the different packages you're offering, it's not out of context again. They've freshly read what they themselves admitted that they want to be solved, why, how they admitted that it needs to be solved right now, and why they felt that your services are the thing that can be the bridge between what problem they have and what is the service that and how your services are going to be a bridge between that problem and that solution. So reiterate the problem that has to be solved, and then talk about why it's important to solve the problem right now, and then say, okay, that in this proposal I'm going to walk you through the process of how we are going to achieve that. So you're setting the context right in the first letter itself, okay? And then maybe in the last 2 lines, you also want to talk about what the tomorrow looks like. Once this problem is solved, what does it look like? So, the question we talked about, the impact this project is going to have on your business. So talk about the pain point, talk about, the tomorrow, what the tomorrow looks like, and then say that, in this proposal, I'm going to walk you through what that bridge is going to look like between the problem and the solutions. I'm essentially walking you through the steps of, how we can get you from where you currently are to where you want to be. And then, then that's the first page. Now, in the next page, you want to set, again, what the problem, the link between the problem and the services, just the services. So what you want to have is milestones. Okay, so in this day, in these many days, you want to have the research docs. In these many days, you want to have the outline. In these many days, you want to have the draft, and then the editing, and then the search engine optimization if that's necessary. Okay, so that's just in the second page, just the problem, the solution, the problem, your services, listing down your services, and the process that's involved, and the milestones. So the process is researching. The milestone is documented unique selling proposition, ideal customer profile, and voice and tone guide. I'm talking about if it's copywriting, so those are the things that are going to be there. The next process is making an outline. What is the milestone or the outcome of it? You will have a documented outline that you can give the designer to have a rough idea of how the website is going to look like. Then then it's the draft. So what is the milestone or the outcome of it? A well-written draft where you can add your comments and tell me if I'm in the right direction. And then maybe the second 2 rounds of edit, and then a search engine optimization and respective outcomes for both of them. In the next section, what you need to be, so this is the problem, the process, and the outcome. The next section is going to be about timelines. Okay, timelines. So again, there you can only then remove the problem section of the table, and just have the outcomes and the timelines, the approximate time it's going to take. That's going to be the next section. And in the next section, then you want to be talking about you want to then give essentially the client 3 different options that they can choose from. Why I suggest that you give them 2 or 3 different options is, again, so one is, we discussed that you don't want to commoditize your services, but in some way or the other, the offer is going to look like you are offering your services in, like, it is your services. You have to sell your services as well, and you want your packages or your services to compete against each other, and not your prices or your packages against the market rates or what others are charging. So usually what's recommended is you have three different packages that the clients can choose from. At no point should the client feel that they are being deprived of something. So I'm very good at making customer personas and documenting the positioning of any company, and that is the part that the client, if somebody is starting out fresh in SaaS, that's the part that they're most interested in. So because that also helps them in when they are going forward with some other content project that they have. So I want to make sure that in all the three packages that I suggest, I have the research docs, which is the unique selling proposition written down, the customer persona written down, and the voice and tone of the content written down. So at no point in all the three packages should you deprive the client of anything. So even if they're going for the lowest package that you suggested, they're not getting deprived of something that you're very good at, or something that they think that without that the project is going to be incomplete. Okay, and then the 2 and the 3 can have some added on features, and then depending on the project how you want to choose. Also, again, like I said, in the first process, like you told the client explicitly as to why this project is important and why it needs to be solved right now. In every section, when so after the letter that you've written, there's going to be a section of milestones and outcomes. So there you want to write 2 lines on okay, this is the outcome we are expecting, and then this is how it's going to look like. In the timeline section, this is an approximate idea of how much time it's going to take, and you want to make it very clear that these are the days, these are the working days that you're talking about, and leaving out Saturday and Sunday. And then in the place where you're mentioning the prices and the packaging, you want to make it very clear that these are the 3 things that I'm suggesting. While I recommend all of the above steps, I'm very sure that all the 3 packages will contribute, will be a great value, or will help you solve the problem that you're looking to be solved. Okay, so that the client is assured that even if I go for the lowest package, I'm not that it is like a huge value addition, and you're not just too much worried about the price and how much money they're going to pay you, and that's the only thing. So you lay it down very clearly, and then very, very, very important, which most of the people miss: next steps. So once you've written down these 3 sections on milestones or outcomes, then you have the timeline, and then you have the pricing. In the last section, you want to have next steps. So the next steps is what the client has to do next. You don't want them to keep wondering. Okay, they'll let you know their response whenever they feel like it, or if they want to go ahead, how is the process going to look like. So in the next steps, you want to make it very clear that please let me know what you which package you want to go ahead with by so and so date. Okay, usually through this process, I don't like artificial scarcity or anything like that. But if you're good with copywriting, maybe you can do that. But the whole process, of talking the client through what they can expect after the project is complete should be so exciting that you don't have to create that artificial deadlines or something like that. So I do that sometimes. I don't do that sometimes, depending on how palpable the excitement is from the side of the prospect for the project. So if I think that the client is not too much worried about having the project done right now, I would usually offer okay, within 3 days, please let me know what you decide. And in the next line, once you let me know whichever project you want to go ahead with, I will draft the contract for you. So you want to take the burden off of the client, and the whole process should look like premium. To be able to charge that well, you really have to make the whole onboarding process, talking to the client, the proposal and everything, so that the business owner also feels like, is this what working with them feels like? Because we all know, you are all solopreneurs and business owners in your own right yourselves, and how much important time is, and how much you feel like if only somebody could not make things worse for you, or could just help you sort out things. And that's what we as consultants or freelancers want to do. We want to take that worry or stress out of their minds, and we want them to be assured about what the process is going to look like, how it's going to go, and how you're going to keep them posted about everything that's happening. Okay, so that they know, and we're not going anywhere. We are here to help them solve the problem that they want to be solved, and that's what we do for a living, and we do it very well. You want to make it very clear. So right in the second step, once you go decide to go ahead with whatever step, let me know whatever package you want to go ahead with. I will draft a contract for you. And also, let them know that, if there are any questions, you are also open to discuss them before they decide to go ahead with it. And then, and close it with, awaiting your response or super excited to get going. And then whatever your name is. So to answer Harshita's question, what is the balance between what your services are and what the client is looking for? I think it's just 30 70. You really don't want to be bogged down by the technicalities of what you do, because the client is really not interested in it. Trust me, I have like made this mistake. And also, don't, once you've had your own process of talking to the client, which I think is again very important, you want to be very clear and you want to have a process of how you will talk the client through whatever project it is. Like I said, don't go into the technicalities of the project. When you get on the discovery call, don't go into, okay, how many pages it's going to take, how many, all these things can be sorted out. The client will tell you. Those are not the important factors. What you want to know is why the client wants to have the project done. Why is it important to get it done right now? How your services will help them solve the problem. Should you even be talking about this? Talk business to business. Like I said, it's, don't be too much bogged down by the technicalities. So that's just 30%. Now, I'm not saying I should not be quoted as saying that that's not important. What I'm saying is that that's not the entire thing. And I'm also assuming that all of you listening this know your skills in one way or the other. It's been 8 months. I've been freelancing. When I started out, the first month, I'll tell you, I'll be very honest, I made more than what I had 3 months combined in my corporate job. The next 2 months, it was really bad. I had no clients whatsoever. I did not know how to do outbounds. I just thought clients would come to me like they did in the first month, and that's not, again, the way it works. And like that so the first 3 months, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh month, again, it was more than what I made in the first month of my freelancing. And I'll tell you, nothing has changed in terms of my skills from the first month to the eighth. Only my perspective has changed, and the way I look at, how I'm going to price my service, how I'm going to talk to the client, or what the value of my services are worth. Now, many of you might also have heard of this concept called, value-based pricing, which is essentially what I was talking about. But you also have to remember that your services. So copywriting is not the only thing that will make their website a success. It's also the design skills. So what value-based pricing says is, as long as the client is making, say, $1,000 off of your whatever work you've done, you can charge anywhere between $1 to $9.99. But you have to understand that your copywriting or whatever. So let's take the example of a website only. So the client wants to have a website, and for that they need a website copy and they need a designer, right? So your copywriting, if you are the copywriter, your copywriting is not the only thing that the client wants. They also want a good design. And if their design sucks, no matter how good whatever copy you've written, it's not going to succeed, right? So even though I tell you about how you need to price according to the value you're bringing to the table, I'm not talking about value-based pricing, for the sole reason that your services are not the only thing that's going to help the business. But how you want it to look like is from a larger perspective, what benefit or what ROI the client is making off of your services has to be more than what you are charging for, and you want to make that again and again very apparent and very clear to the client. And also I said $1,000 for a month. Okay, so you also want to look at how long the client is for how long the client will have the website copy on their website. So if it's for 2 years, then and they're making $1,000 off of every client they close, every lead that comes to their website, then you want to maybe charge $2,000 or $3,000, because they're going to get essentially $1,000 into 24 months if they're looking to have the website copy for 2 years. It's just about liquidity then. Okay, they're going to, if you think that your services are good, and it'll give the client the ROI they're looking for, then it'll give the client the ROI they're looking for, then it's just about liquidity, right? For them, it's just about having the money and investing in you and getting the problem solved, right? So I hope it made sense. Let me know in the chat box if that was helpful, and then how you guys how it's going so far. It's like I there's almost nothing in the chat box. Harshita, did that make sense?
Absolutely, that gave a clear cut idea of how to actually price according, make a pricing proposal, and then communicate with the audience, with the client through that same. Because not only the price is important, you have to get into the client's mind and ask like what exactly the services they want, and uh, what I can charge accordingly. So that was really well explained by you, Greg.
Yes, thank you, Harshita. And I would love for everybody to participate and let me know. It's very difficult to just be speaking one way. So, guys, if you know
Yeah,
if everybody's following and are on the same page, just type yes in the chat box.
Archana,
yeah.
over
I
to you.
just wanted to ask a question. Like, I have submitted proposals on Upwork, but nothing has worked so far. I just want to know. I mean, how should a proposal? How should a proposal sound? Like, what exactly can I write in a proposal? I've
Uh,
tried attaching the samples as well, but I don't know why not even a single client is accepting the proposal. I don't know what's happening. Like,
so you're Archana, right?
oh yes.
Okay, awesome. Archana, one again, so this is in generally speaking for all of you also here. Any like the acceptance of any proposal when you talk to a client or the closing rate, it depends on a lot of factors. I need to have a little more context before I can give you advice on why it's not getting accepted. For marketplaces like Upwork and Fiverr, people usually look at how many ratings or how many testimonials you have, and before they opt for you.
Oh no, I've just started. I'm yet to be rated. I mean, I'm not even got one. So I don't think so. Like they can
So
rate me without any work.
right. So, Archana, do you make it clear in your proposal that you've just started out, and that you're looking for and that you're good with what you're doing, and you just because you don't have any testimonials or reviews, you think that many clients don't accept the proposal, but that you're really invested in their project and you'll make it a success. Do you make that clear?
I don't know. Like, but I do attach my samples and yeah, um I just write a few things about me, like how can I make it a big, how can I make it a success and things like that. But I don't know. Nobody has accepted so far.
Yes, and this is exactly the trap that I was in when I just started out. Again, like I'll reiterate what I just said. You don't want to be ever bogged down by the technicalities or the details of what you do. You have to be like talking to the client in their terms, right? So you telling them what you've done will is only 30% of the whole conversation. 70% of it has to be what their project is about and what is the plan you have to make their project a success. And again, like I said, think it from the prospect's perspective or the client's perspective, for whom you're trying to write this proposal. You want to, like, they are again in their minds thinking there are 10 other people who have maybe 10 times like you don't have any testimonials or ratings, right? So they are in their minds thinking, how do I trust this person? There are other people. How do I know that you're not a scam, and this is not for you? Like, I mean, just from the client's perspective, how do I know that you're not a scam, and that my project is going to get done? And oftentimes for entrepreneurs, especially when you get better at and you're selling high ticket, you getting high ticket clients or selling to high ticket clients, money is not usually the factor. It's more of time. So in their minds, they're also thinking that, okay, if even if Archana has all these wonderful samples, or even if she's done all these things in the past, can I trust her that she's not going to waste my time at the end of it, and I'm not at the end of the project going to feel that maybe she was not the right person to go ahead with? So what you want to do in your proposal, Archana, is again, like I said, 70% of the proposal should just be what is their problem, and how what is your plan to get it solved, and how exactly your process is going to look like. So let's say if they are looking for somebody who can write blogs for them, and they are a SaaS company, so maybe in the proposal you can say something like, hey, I know how to write very good product led stories, okay, and then I can engage the users with them, and then I have written for so and so companies in the past, and you can give in the proposal testimonials from your past clients who might not be on Upwork and Fiverr. And also, again, there are some objections that the client is not explicitly telling you, but they have it in their mind. So you want to again address all of them. So I would usually at the end write that, hey, I've just started on Upwork or Fiverr, and I don't have any ratings or testimonials, and I'm looking to get started with projects. I have done projects outside of the platform, and I have delivered wonderful results. So if you just give me a chance, I'm going to prove my worth right now. And also, when I was starting out, this is like even when I was applying to like companies and things like that, there is a question where they ask you, what's your rate? And very often again, you get bogged down by the technicalities of, okay, this is what I'm worth and this is what I'll do. You want to again be talking to the client on their own terms. And usually my answer to, when I was seeking jobs right straight out of college, my answer to all those questions were, I'm sure that, ABC company, whatever company that I'm applying to, I'm sure that ABC company will give me prices that will give me a very competitive salary as per industry standards. Right now, I'm just looking to get into the company and prove my worth. That used to be my answer to all questions related to what salaries you're expecting. So because I knew I need to get my foot in the door, until and unless I have, until and unless I'm giving the chance, how will we even talk about, let's go into the interview, let's talk about all these things. So you really need to you really have to seek what's your priority right now. So if your priority is getting clients, talk to them on their terms and address the objections and make it very clear that you understand that, you're just getting started and you don't have all the leverage that others who are pitching for the same project has, but you still, are better at what you're doing, and that you'll give them the results they're looking for. More so because you're just getting started out and you're worried about, getting all the testimonials and the ratings that other people have for other projects as well, which you don't necessarily right now. Did that make sense?
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, because I'll do that next time. Thank you very much.
Okay, awesome. And reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want, like if you want some more specific advice on, writing the proposal.
Yeah,
And
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay, we can ask the audience if they have any more questions related to the pricing or the charging your worth and discovery calls. For me, I had 5 to 6 questions for you, but I guess in the questions you answered, I got all my answers that I was looking for.
That's nice to know. And nobody told me in the comment section that they are following what I'm saying. Nobody said yes. So guys, are you following? Is everybody here, or everybody drifted off to sleep? Just let me know in the chat. Say yes if you're here.
Let us know if you are listening actively to us. Himanshi, Pratmesh, Ayushi, everyone, please. Yeah, we have got some responses. So maybe they are writing down the points so that they don't forget next.
Okay, that's such a nice hedge, Harshita. You're getting good at this.
Because like generally people do that in the sessions, and after the session they send me the messages or the screenshots that they have made notes, or they have written down the important points, because they actually listen the speaker and follow up afterwards, and that really means a lot to me, that the people are listening to the sessions and getting some insights from the session.
Yes, absolutely, Harshita. And I very much appreciate you taking the initiative and, bringing all this information out to everybody around here, and even, after the session is over.
Thanks to you, Rick, for getting this on and doing this workshop. Tomorrow also we have a session on SaaS marketing, and even we can ask the audience if they have any question, they can ask tomorrow as well.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. So everybody who's here, tomorrow we are doing a session on SaaS marketing, and I'll be going through what is product-led growth, what is product-led storytelling, what is customer-led growth, and topics like that, and how to really understand making customer personas, understanding unique selling propositions, and how do you actually go about creating all of those things. So if anybody is interested, it is around SaaS marketing, because the examples and then the constructs that I'm using are related particularly to SaaS, but it's for anybody who's into content marketing and wants to move ahead of just their content writing or copywriting skills, and want to understand how marketing and strategy looks like for any company, and how you can go about pricing for that as well. So if anybody is interested in that, just join in tomorrow around the same time. We'll be discussing that. And I'm also happy to take, like Harshita said, any questions related to what we just discussed. Also, if you just come to my LinkedIn profile, it's Mrigneni, or if you just type MRIG Mrig, and my profile is going to pop up. I have in the featured section a post on starting a newsletter, and more details on how the sales process looks like is there in the newsletter. So if you just opt in, you'll be signed on to a 5-day challenge, which talks about rethinking the way you price, your positioning, price anchoring, road mapping, and putting it all together in a proposal. So it's a 5-day challenge, and there are worksheets at the end of every day, and you can go ahead and fill out those worksheets, email it to me at the end of it. I'll give you I give you a worksheet that you can email to me and ask me questions. So in the featured section of my LinkedIn profile, you'll find it there. Just go in the comments, there is the link, click on it, enter your email ID, and you'll join the challenge automatically. So that's there if anybody is interested to dig into all the topics that we discussed today. One thing that I think we missed is day 4 of the challenge, which I cover, which is road mapping. So like I said, when you're talking to a client, Harshita, we have time. I can take 5 more minutes, right?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Like till 6 we can do the session.
Okay, awesome. I quickly want to touch on what is road mapping, and how you can create a sort of a risk reversal when you're talking to a prospect or a client. So I told you, right, in the discovery process itself, you don't want to actually talk about the details of the process, or go much too into what your services and what your task is going to involve, and then go away in some sort of a cave and try to write out and spend 3 hours writing a proposal and throwing a random number, and then giving it to the client and hoping and praying that that is the price that they expected. Spaghetti meat wall. That's not the way it works. So one good thing that if you think that it's going to be a long-term engagement, and there is everything that we discussed today is I want to make it very clear, everything that we discussed today is predicated on the fact that you're very good with your services. So if you're not, I would seriously advise you to go back and invest more in yourself, invest in learning and honing your craft. That's very important, because unless and until that happens, it's just not going to move forward. 80% of my business today comes from referrals and networks, and that's just because the clients are happy with the services, even though they're paying more than what anybody ever quoted them. I had this particular client from People's Impact, and then she wanted her website to be written, and the price I quoted was 3 times higher than what everybody around was quoting. And she got a discovery call. I knew that there was not enough trust between me and her, and especially since she's been in the industry for 30 plus years, very like experienced and old, and she might not trust somebody as young as me to maybe talk in her language, or use her lexicons and have that website written in a very professor like terms. And she talked to me, and then I told her a lot of new things, and she said, okay, you even opened up some things that I had not brainstormed about. So she was just thinking of a website copy as a website copy, but I told her that's not it. She does not want to go through the process of explaining to writers what her vision is and what she needs to be done, and which means that she wants to have everything documented as to what her positioning is going to be, what is her message, what is her vision, how the content should look and feel like, which is the voice and tone. Okay. And she had it was about a 45-50 minute conversation, and then she said okay, and she said send me a proposal. And I said no, we need to talk a little bit more before I give you a proposal. And she said no, I'm very happy with what we discussed. Let just throw me the proposal, and then we can go ahead. I want to get started ASAP. So I gave her the proposal, and when she saw the price, I think she was taken aback. Okay, this is maybe not what we are paying. So she went away for a week, and I know she consulted 10 other freelancers and consultants out there, and nobody satisfied her. And I knew she was going to come back. So she came back. We did the project, and now I have 2 more referrals from her. So you really want to be good at your craft and understanding your space, and you need to be better at convincing your client that this is what. Very often they are unsure of what needs to be done, and which is why I think this term freelancer is sort of, I mean, not very appropriate for what we all do, which is much more than freelancing. So freelancing is basically you have some sort of services and the client actually knows what they want, which is, I think, very often not the case. The client themselves are not sure of what they are looking for, and they come to you more for consultancy and talking as to what are the possibilities of what can be done. So you really need to think on those terms as to show them different ways of how that same problem can be solved in 2 to 3 different ways, and explaining each route to them, and just building that trust between you and the prospect. um, so that's one thing. If the project is long term and you're sure about what you do, who you serve, and very clear on whatever is your craft, and if you think that the project is long term and there is not enough trust between you and the prospect. Trust is like a very big factor. The client will go ahead with the project if they trust you enough with whatever you're promising. You can't just ask them a big number and expect them to trust you with that money, and expect you to, trust you to give the results that you're promising. So if the project is long term, what you can do is you can start with a road mapping project. So what a road mapping project is essentially consulting or giving them a roadmap of how the next 2 or 3 months are going to look like, depending on whatever project they have in mind. So say if they want blogs to be written every month, then just you can these are SEO blogs, say, which is usually the case in SaaS at least. So what I would do is I would keep when I know that the client is looking for SEO blogs, I would deliberately keep the discovery call only 15 minutes. And in the 15 minutes, what I want to tell them is, okay, hey, again, I make it very clear that I work with clients when I'm confident I can give you the ROI, because I don't want my portfolio to be a graveyard of failed projects. And I don't want you at the end of the project feeling, okay, I don't know what this girl was doing here, and I don't know how what she's done is impacting my business in any way. Even if we are not going ahead with the project, I want to make sure that at the end of the conversation, you are better off than what you started, and you have a clear idea of actually what is the thing that you should be looking in some other freelancers if I'm not the right fit for you. And in some point in the future, the prospect usually refers me to somebody else, because they're so happy that I was very frank about the fact that I'm not the right fit, or I was the not right person for them. In the conversation, when I see that that's a long-term project and they want SEO blogs to be written, I keep the discovery call 15 minutes. I tell them that, I only work with clients where I'm confident I can give you the ROI. So how about instead of, signing a contract for the next 6 months, which I'm not sure, because if you're asking me a proposal for the next 6 months, it's going to be a very big number. And I'm not sure right now, because you don't know me enough, if you're going to trust me with that. This is something I'm sure I'm not explicit about that. I don't tell it like that, because then I'm like, I don't do that. It's something that I tell that, the client will think in their own minds. And I put myself in their shoes and think, okay, this is the thought process that might go inside their head. So what I say is, okay, let's get started with a road mapping project. And in the road mapping project, I'll give you a plan of what the 6 months are going to look like. And we don't just want to be focused on writing content. We also need to be focused on optimizing and distributing the content. So I'll give you a plan of what the next 6 months are going to look like, the keywords we are going to target, and for the roadmap, I'm not going to write anything. For the roadmap, you can give me ABC amount of price. It's going to be upfront because it's a very small amount, and you'll have a plan. So even if my prices or I'm not the right fit for the next 6 months, or my prices are too high, then you can go ahead with some other freelancers, and you have this map, and exactly what are the topics you need to be covering. It's all backed by data, and you'll have it all in the document that I'm going to share in the roadmap. So what this does is a couple of things. One, it establishes trust. And the client knows that you know what you're talking about, and that you want to make sure that it's a success for them and you and the project in general. Okay. The second is they also start respecting your time, and in the future they understand that you charge for your consultations, and whatever advice you're going to give them, and it's not for free. Okay. So that's one big thing that I've noticed when I say, okay, I'll give them for a road mapping, that let's get started with the road mapping project, where I'm going to show you the plan of how the next 6 months are going to look like. Then again, in the future, I've seen when we sign a retainer, if it's a big company, they usually know that my time is precious, and then that I usually charge for the plans that I suggest, or the advices that I give, which is huge again. And the third is risk reversal. they're not risking a lot of money at the start. So if you're like me, you charge 50% advance, like which like most freelancers do, and if you're quoting for the next 6 months, you probably 50% of that, or maybe 50% of the first month. Doing a roadmap is sort of a risk reversal, which gets them to say an immediate yes. And again, if you're very sure of what you're going to present, this is like a very good way to go about it, because the client immediately says yes, you can just get started. No more wasting time in making big long proposals. Also, just give them a small statement of work and the invoice for the plan that they want to get started with. Show them the plan. If they are happy with it, go about executing it. That's one way, and I think it works really well for people who have been in the space for some while, and they really where clients come to them not just for the project, but also for some consultation or some sort of strategy in one way or the other. Okay, so guys, did this make sense? Tell me yes in the chat.
That was again an insightful answer on the road mapping, and that was something new, something I haven't heard of till now. Because as soon as the client approaches, we get a client, we think of a long term proposal only. But before that, you have rightly said that we have to be confident enough, and through road mapping, it would make the things clear for both of us and for the client as well. So that would help us a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100% Harshita. And I think, I would not take any names, but there are a lot of freelancers who try to boost I mean, everybody's egos, including me, in their LinkedIn profiles with their posts and through their content. And they say, you really need to understand what is your worth and, charge accordingly and things like that. But I think what that has led us to do is, be too much into our own space. Like I said, you go inside too much of your own cave without really understanding what I mean, how what you're doing helps the client in any way, one way or the other. Generally speaking, like everybody would like to work with you. Everybody wants to move towards the better, right? So what is the reason that they are not closing? What is it that makes them not go ahead with the project and things like that? You really need to be thinking about it, and you really, like, really, if there's one thing you take away from the session, it is that don't be too much worried about yourself, what you're doing, and don't be too much bogged about the technicalities of what you do. Put yourself in the client's shoes, and really think about it. And like Harshita just said, when a prospect comes to us, we immediately start thinking of the long term engagement, and how much we could price, and how I mean, if you're somebody like me, and I remember when I started out, the first month I had shit ton of money, and I was thinking, oh my god, I cannot even believe the places I'm going to go, and just work with all this money that I have. So somebody like me will even go a step further, and start thinking about what I'm going to do once I get that money. But really, don't be too much worried about the technicalities of what you do. Put yourself in the shoes of the client and think it from their perspective. Okay, that okay, if I'm to hire myself, is there some block in the way? And you really need to start run your way backwards from there. Is there enough trust between you and me for them to really give me the money that I'm asking for? And if not, you really want to start with a very piecemeal project that establishes and shows your expertise, and shows that you really know what you're doing, and you do it well as well, right? So really rethink the way you've been talking to clients, and like I said, talk business to business. Again, we all are good at what we are doing, and just in yes, investing in your skills is important, but learning sales and marketing, and like I said, seeing it from the perspective of business, and understanding how it makes business sense and all of those things, that's a different skill set, and you really need to be working at it as well. So that's something.
Right. You explained it very well, Mrik. We can see if we have some questions from the audience. Okay, Isha, I guess Isha have joined late.
Yeah.
So maybe she can refer to the recording, because we have already talked about the proposal. Okay, you left. Hello? Am I audible to you, Mrik?
I'm so sorry, Harshita. I mean, I was just fiddling around and I pressed the back button by mistake.
Okay, no issues. Yeah. So, just waiting for 2 more minutes. If anyone has any question, we can take it up. Till then, I just want to thank you, Mreg, for taking out time for our session and delivering so much of value and your personal stories to us. It actually helped us a lot, and if we actually like go with the step-by-step procedure of you said, it would really make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Harshita, for letting me, have this platform and to share my insights. I hope, to everybody who joined and who will be listening to this later on, that it's going to help them, really rethink the way they've been pricing and, the way they've been thinking about selling their services in general. And if you have any other questions, like I said, we have a session tomorrow, and you guys can always connect with me or reach out to me on my LinkedIn. Just type MRIG Rig. That's what everybody calls me around, or Mrignani Pandey. That's my name. And just connect with me. Send me a message, and I'll also be very happy if you guys, if there's anything that you take away from the session, please share it with me on LinkedIn and post about it, write about it. I would love to reshare your stories and help you guys out with the process itself.
Yes. So maybe like you can like people can connect with you on LinkedIn and ask their queries. And although we are meeting tomorrow at same time, so
Yeah.
on to discuss on another topic about SaaS marketing. So if anyone has any question from today's session, also they can ask it tomorrow. Okay. So with this, I guess we can end today's session.
Yes. All right, Harshita. Thank you so much, people, for joining again. Thanks, Harshita, for having me here. And I hope I see you guys all tomorrow in the SaaS marketing session. And yeah, thank you for being so patient and thank you for listening. I hope I get to also connect with you guys on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.